Now the next project we have to work on here is, this is parts of Vlad's BIMOTA that we've already painted a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I think it was a year ago we painted these. They need some detail improvements, some wear and tear that has taken place in the last year. We're going to get started on it today. Now when Vlad was here, he showed me what happened here, and I'm not sure what that's all about. Since these parts, this one you don't see, this is one you do see, and he's putting a bolt in here, but not a washer, of course. It looks like whoever had this before had a washer behind the bolt. They squashed in the paint. Whatever they did, we're going to try to fill that in a little bit and repaint, just touch that up. We got the same thing on this one, and this one looks like it has a little crack. We're going to try to take care of that. There's a little spot on this one where the mirror mounts that needs to be taken care of. These are all minor little touch-ups. We're going to try to do some of it with the airbrush. We have the matching paint. Again, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but we do have one big repair here. Now, this part, apparently the bike was dripping or leaking a little bit of oil, so I've got to really clean this part well. And the bottom piece where these fairings come together, this part, we've already reinforced it with carbon fiber. I think this is a part we've reinforced more than once. We're going to have to sand some of that down, put some fresh CA on it and some fresh carbon. So I guess this would be a day like today. We'll just try to get started on the biggest part first. Now, because I know this part in particular is contaminated with oil and wax, I want to clean the whole part before I start doing any mechanical, any repair or any work with the carbon fiber. Both sides, I want to get it as clean as possible. Now, because we've already repaired, oh, there's a lot of oil down here. Because we've really repaired this, what I'm going to do is go over these parts bit by bit by bit while I'm doing the carbon repair. Now, most of this stuff, if you look at it, you can see right away what the issue was. The issue with this is there's some kind of stress. This is popping up here. We'll get rid of, and you can see all the, this bike had some kind of a little issue with the oil. Now, the reason for doing this is if you don't do this, you contaminate your gloves, and as you're working around, you wind up any place that you're going to paint, it's going to be a problem. It's just a constant. It's a constant problem, in fact. So we'll try the first thing. Even get some new paper towels here. If there was one thing, whenever I've had somebody learning the skills that I've been able to pass on of painting, and by the way, most of what I learned the hard way, the old-fashioned way. You just made a lot of mistakes and learned from them. Now with YouTube and being able to share things with the modern technology, it's a lot easier. But getting all the wax and all the grease, and especially the oil off, that would be step one on this. And now the first thing is to try to look at this carefully and see, we're going to try to get rid of some of that material mechanically. This is the area to be repaired. This is a piece of carbon fiber here, and I'm going to try to just grind this out, sand it out, grind it out, put in a new piece of carbon fiber here. Yeah, that's really is a mess there. But this is a part I know we've worked on before. See, now what I did in the past, I reinforced all of these. This is my reinforcement all the way up here. I don't know if I did this one or if I went over the reinforcement that was already there. I'm not sure. You can see there's some kind of a rubbing issue up here, but we'll try to straighten this out as best we can. And I do remember reinforcing all of these with carbon fiber. Those are all my reinforcements, and all of those seem to hold up pretty well. Got no cracking out here, none. That's all fine. It's this one on the bottom, and I think the issue is these two pieces overlap. One goes on top of the other, and the problem is when you pinch these bolts, they probably don't line up exactly the way they should, and when you pinch that, you put that under a twist or a stress. But again, we'll make it as strong as we possibly can. First thing is to get rid of all the old material. Now, when you do a repair like this, a lot of times you're tempted to just go over the old stuff, which I know is contaminated now with oil. So the best thing is just to grind it all off. I can already see what one of the issues is that we didn't anticipate. This has rivets holding it together. If I remember right, this part had a piece of aluminum or something here. Yeah, it does. So I'm going to have to go around those rivets very carefully. I don't want to break out the rivets. I'm going to have to peel this back. I may have to do this a little bit different way by hand because there's 4 rivets that are holding this together. I want to go around them as close as possible. Now what I'm going to do is try to Dremel tool around these rivets without squashing the rivets. I don't know if this is going to be exactly what I want. In fact, maybe what I ought to do is turn the power strip on. That might help. Now, the Dremel tool certainly takes some of that away, but again, you don't want to breathe too much of this carbon dust. You don't want to breathe any of it in fact. I'll take this towel out and shake it out. I think the rest of that I'm going to have to do by hand. Now, as we work our way down into this and getting rid of all that old material, it makes a lot of dust and a lot of grit. What's going to happen? I'm going to have to take this towel outside and shake it out or replace it. I'll let you show this. All this grit and dust and dirt and little pieces of dead carbon fiber, we sure don't want to have that in the shop. Okay, we want to leave this a little bit rough just so everything bonds to it. Okay, once we've vacuumed up all the dust and gotten rid of all the dust around here as much as possible. Again, you don't want to breathe any of that in, that's for sure. I want to take this piece and I want to put some thin CA on it. This is a critical part of getting this repair to be as strong as possible. Remember, none of these things are like a brand new part would be. We're trying to salvage parts because these have had vibration, oil, age, among other. I don't know how old this bike is, but just look at me. Everything deteriorates with age, that's for sure. Okay, that gives us a good surface for the bond. Now we got to cut a piece of carbon fiber to fit in there. I want to cut a piece plenty oversized. This is now going to be, now I want to just roughly cut this to shape, get a rough idea of how, we're going to go over that, around that, around that, around that. Okay, this is special epoxy that's made for doing this kind of repair. Very, very strong epoxy. And this, you have to work fast. The cure time is very, very quick on this. You may have to do this in 2 steps, I don't know. Relatively cool in the shop, so that should stack the deck in our favor. I just wanted to show this in real time, not in some kind of fake real time, I guess is the right word. Get plenty of epoxy on there. That's always step 1. Always let it bond to some thin CA. That's trick number 2. And when you think of what it would cost to buy some of these parts, if you could find them, of course that's step 1, is you got to find them. Now let's lay this out. This has a Kevlar thread right in the top, which will even make it even stronger. the trick is to get rid of all these extra threads you don't need. Now where those rivets are, we want to get that pushed down. Okay, now once we get the resin on there, hit that with some heat. That's going to take about 20 minutes to dry now. Now while that's all drying up, I'm going to hand sand this, or maybe machine sand it. Get rid of some of this material because I'm going to refinish it up to here. And then I have to make a little piece for back here. Haven't figured out exactly how I want to do that yet. We'll figure that out. But to get this flattened out, and you can see these bolts, again, these washers and bolts and everything have really taken their toll, but and then we'll get some CA into these cracks. Now the trick here is to roughen this up enough. Since we're going to have to make that little piece of fiberglass back there, I just want to have it as smooth as possible. That crack is right there. We'll fix that with the CA. And I'll have to finish sanding this by hand. And then we'll be ready to get in and create that little piece that's missing. Now I can't really make this as flat as I'd like to because what's going to happen, see this part is not smooth. So what's going to happen if I build this up, this part goes inside the other part of the fairing and it's going to push it apart. So I've flattened this as much as I possibly could. Now I'll fix the cracks with CA. And then I'm just going to do a final hand sanding on that, and then we can get on to making that little piece in the back. That's going to be a challenging little piece to make. And like everything with this work, it's dirty, filthy work. You've got to try to minimize how much you breathe in. I want to get the part horizontal here. Since this is capillary material, this will fix the crack, but it's not going to be any stronger than if you put this part under enough stress, which I'm not sure how this, I've never even seen this bike all put together. If this part is under stress, the odds are good it's going to crack again. But we've got more carbon fiber underneath it, so we'll hope that'll make it a little bit better. And what I think I'll do here, I think I'll put a little piece of light fiberglass cloth over this. Since I've sanded some material away, I can afford to put a little bit of material there. Let's see how that works out. What I'm going to have to try to do, this is at best a compromise. Yeah, I think that's what I'll try to do here. I'll just give this one more shot of CA. Since this is capillary material, I'm going to cut a little piece of light fiberglass cloth just for this corner where this is prone to cracking. Now this is very light fiberglass cloth, and what I'm going to hope happens here, we'll find out in 1 minute. It's going to work the way I want. Never works the way you want. And of course I'll have to just lightly sand this. Now see, since you don't see this, this is not going to be a visible thing. I'm not going to spend all day making this cosmetically pretty. Up to where the tape is, you don't even see it. But this will strengthen it up quite a bit, I'm sure. Now what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to get in here with the Dremel tool and reopen those holes up since they have some fiberglass in there, only because I don't want to lose those holes on both sides when I paint this. Now I'll just take some 220 sandpaper and just blend this in just a little bit. Then we're going to trim off all the edge, everything around the edge of this. Sand up to the tape with some 600. And I guess this is, see, because you don't see this, this is not as critical. The critical thing is that it doesn't crack and start a crack that works its way into the part that you do see. But this will be a lot nicer than it was. And there's still that aluminum reinforcement in there is the biggest item of all. It looks like a mouse took a bite out of that. Now to try to recreate this, very few ways to do this conveniently, but one of them is, and we'll try to build up some Bondo in here. I hate to use Bondo, but in this case, there's no other realistic way to do this that I can think of. So what I'll try to do is use the tape just to hold it in place while the Bondo dries. I'll mix up a little Bondo, pack it in there, and then we'll have to work that out a surface probably 2 or 3 times to get it to blend in. But we do have this part reinforced really good. I don't think that's going to crack again. This part's a lot flatter than it was, although you can't make it perfect. It has waves in it. And let's hope this is going to serve Vlad's needs for the next couple of years while he's out tearing up the town with this bike. Now, as always with Bondo, the most important thing is to make sure you don't have any streaks of Bondo that don't have hardener in it. I just put a big glob in there. The tape will not give it an accurate shape, but just keep it from falling out. Once that kicks off, I'll go have a cup of coffee when I come back. I should be able to rough grind that out and then maybe put Bondo in on the other side. I don't know. And then I'm going to have to refinish that whole thing with 600 sandpaper before I go on to the next step. So a little job like this, even a little piece like this, can require several shots of sanding Bondo. The reinforcement is the part of this that has to be absolutely right. You cannot, if that reinforcement isn't right, all this body work is just for nothing. And we'll be doing this over again next year. Now the trick here, if it's our lucky day, is to take a brand new razor blade. We've taken off the tape, cut the edges smooth before the Bondo cures up into rock solid. This just makes it a lot easier to get that edge. And we're going to have to put this aside to dry for a while, but I just want to get that edge, which you really can't get with the tape. I can get the last little bit of that off. Once it cures, you're not able to do this. You got to wait. But I can get a lot of the, see, I'm basically carving it with a, like you're cutting a turkey. Once this hardens up, we'll put some epoxy on the inside to strengthen it. Because remember, the Bondo has, for all purposes, no strength. Bondo is just useless. Okay, so we've carved it. Now I can take a little bit of sandpaper. Just roughly get this in. I don't want to do the final. The final I have to do at 600 or 400. Just rough this in. And I'll get some epoxy behind this to start curing up. And we've got roughly the shape. Now I get the final shape on this once this turns rock hard, and I'll probably wait a while for that. But in the meantime, I can just get some epoxy in here that'll make maybe a little piece of fiberglass or something just to stiffen that up. Because if this broke, you can be sure somewhere down the road, maybe there's an exhaust pipe touches this or something, and that's why it did that. Now what we're doing while the Bondo is super curing here, I'm getting some fiberglass reinforcement, carbon fiber reinforcement behind that little piece, just to strengthen it up. There's not much, really not much else we can do here. Now, as the final thing today, the last thing I can get done here, I put another coat of this reinforcing fiberglass right on the back of this. Try to build that edge up, try to get it nice and smooth. Once this dries, this is going to have to dry overnight now. Everything on here should be drying overnight. And then we'll start on the finishing part of this. That'll be a separate video. The finishing will be, I have some ideas I want to try. Very difficult to, unless you see this in real life. And if you don't, and if you know you can do this kind of repair, and let me just give you an example what's real nice. One of the projects we tentatively are going to be working on, I talked to Vlad about it already. He's got a Modus, and it's been crashed, and we need to work on the carbon fiber bodywork. So that, anybody who doesn't know what a Modus is, just look up Modus on your great phone, on your iPhone. That'll be a unique project. Like last year we did the Benellis, and we did the BIMOTAs. But Vlad has a very unique collection of bikes, and this will definitely reinforce that just a little bit. So this is going to sit aside to dry at least for one day. We don't have a paintable day today anyway. And pretty much the rest of the work that has to be done on these parts, it's really a problem because we need paintable days. And a day like today, we can do the Bondo work, we can do the carbon fiber work like we did today. We can prep everything, but we can't paint till we get a paintable day. So this is actually step one of this BIMOTA, I don't know what we would even call this, the BIMOTA restoration project, the restoration of the restoration. Pretty funny, but we got a good bite out of it today. And of course for us, as always, it's time to go get the baby. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching, and thanks for restoring these bikes. Keeping them in tip-top shape like Vlad does, keeping them looking brand new, and ride the wheels off them every chance you get.